I was one who never really believed in social media. I actually ran around my school taking devices from kids, chastising them for being on their technology, because I just never really saw the value in social media. And it wasn't until 2009 that I got on Twitter, and I only got on Twitter to communicate. You won't find an effective leader who's not an effective communicator. But as I got on Twitter and I began to communicate, I began to learn how to unlearn and relearn. And that's where we really began to improve the work at my former school. But back in 2009, what we really learned, and what I learned, was the power and outcomes if we tell our story. If you don't tell your story, someone else will. And when someone else tells your story, it's not the one you want told. In today's frenetic world, we don't have 30 minutes to be interrupted. I'm sorry, we don't have 30 seconds to be interrupted, but we have 30 minutes to hear a great story. Stories link us and our communities together. So why tell a story? Yeah, we want to improve the work, we want to share work, but why tell a story? Stories are distinctly human. They're hardwired into our DNA. We've been writing stories since the beginning of time via cave paintings. Stories activate the emotional part of the brain, and they also aid in memory. To take it a step further, research has shown how storytelling impacts the brain, whether it's through neural coupling. A story activates the part of the brain that allows the listener to turn the story into his or her own ideas and experiences. This is neural coupling. Then there's mirroring. Listeners will not only experience the similar brain activity to each other, but also to the speaker. But why do we tell stories? Dopamine. When the brain releases dopamine into the system when it experiences an emotionally charged event, making it easier to remember and with greater accuracy. There's other elements of the brain that storytelling impacts, but as you think about great stories have narratives. Narratives have structure, they create interest, and they build community. So what are the keys to telling a great story? Know your audience. Different stories will resonate with different people. Your best storytellers are your kids. The second best storytellers are your teachers. If you're a leader, an administrator, leverage the stories of your teachers and kids. The best stories contain subtle messages. It's not about bragging about how great you are. It's about creating that narrative that has a subtle message. Great stories are inspiring. Yeah, achievement's important, but people don't really want to hear about increasing achievement, and they don't really make good stories. Tell inspiring stories. The best stories are about truth, being honest, being transparent. Taking all those elements, the best stories build a promise. It's about creating value, trust, transparency, and creating relationships. In the end, you all have a choice in the digital age. You have a choice to become the storyteller in chief. And why wouldn't you? Great stories happen in our classrooms, schools, districts, organizations every single day. People crave for those stories. They want to be uplifted. Stories build belief. They build those important relationships. Without trust, there's no relationship. Without relationships, no real learning occurs. Use the power of stories to convey a message, a true narrative of all the great things that happen in our schools. Build those relationships and let everybody celebrate at all the great things that you're doing.